Greetings, YouTube. I was raised as a Catholic, but as I like to tell friends, I got better. But my mother raised me as one, as she was raised by one by her grandmother. Her mother, rather. My grandmother was a very strict Austrian Catholic. It was her opinion that only Austrian Catholics would get into heaven, though if the Germans were really good and Catholic, they might get in too. But everybody else, not getting into heaven. When I was 5, I asked myself why I was talking to the ceiling while I was praying. And at that moment, I became an atheist. And I remained one until I was 19. I never once had any kind of an inkling or attraction to the spiritual life. It was just dead to me. I was colorblind in a world full of hues. I used to wear a St. James medal when I was younger. In fact, this chain right here, which is currently carrying my ankh, is that chain. It's a nice chain. I've always liked it. I just took the St. James medal off. When I was 19, I began to ask questions, and the answers I could not find in any book on science or philosophy, sociology, or psychology. I began to realize that the answers I was looking for were the spiritual. And almost as a lark, one night, I wished upon a star. I discovered that whenever I saw the first star of the night, I'd make a wish. And then, inspired by Robert Heinlein, I began to refer to the moon as my mistress. Very shortly, I realized that I wasn't referring to a mistress. I was referring to a god. And I was seeing the moon as the physical manifestation of the goddess. I began to tackle this issue, work it out in my head, figure out what it meant to me. And when I was 22, I finally admitted to myself that I was a dyed-in-the-wool pagan, or at least a neo-pagan. I began to openly worship my goddess, and I began to wear a pentacle as a representation of the 4 elements and the human spirit, as a protective device. And I began to call myself a pagan, neo-pagan to the fellow pagan communities, but pagan to the general public. My goddess has never told me her name. I've always imagined that she looks like a long-haired brunette wearing an outfit sort of somewhere between Norse and Native American. I also imagine her always carrying a sword, a scythe, and a bow, representing the harvesting of life in all its form: human, animal, plant. Her worship brought me peace, and through my spiritual readings and explorations, I began to discover entire vistas that had been turned off to me before. That's one of the things I've never grasped about atheism. It's literally like having color vision and asking someone to turn it off. The spiritual is a tool, just like logic, just like reason. It's a tool. If you use one in place of the other, you're doomed. But if you use them in balance, if you realize they don't conflict, reason and spirituality can be tools to help you understand reality. And that's very handy, because science can't answer all the questions, and the gods can't answer all the questions. So I seek the right questions at the right sources. When I was 32, I began to realize that I was missing an aspect of my spirituality, that of the masculine. My goddess was very good at representing the feminine, the maiden, the mother, the crone. And after some literal soul-searching, I discovered that I had been, in one way or another, worshipping the Egyptian god Ptah for quite some time. Not in his aspects as a creator, I actually don't believe in a creator, but in his aspect as a craftsman and as a keeper of knowledge. The hard stuff. So I finally had a balance. masculine, feminine, hard, soft, yin and yang. I realize that the cultures I draw these from, my goddess, who I feel predates our species, the same goddess that was worshipped by the Neanderthals, Homo habilis, Australopithecus afarensis, and Ta, who's probably 5,000 or 6,000 years old and based in Egypt. I'm also an animist, believing that all things have a spiritual essence, both animate and inanimate, living and dead. I am an ancestor worshipper, and I venerate the dead in general. On October 31st, I leave out offerings of food. It's also my wedding anniversary. I chose that day so my wife could never forget. I have prayers I say every day, of my own writing. I have occasional chants, charms I use. I wear a pentacle and an ankh. I've been known to wear a sun wheel. I have never sought out anyone to become my follower. I do not want one. I wouldn't know what to do with one. I don't want to be a member of any faith, any church, any covenant. I'm a solo practitioner, and I like it that way. There are 6 billion humans in the world, and I think there should be 6 billion faiths, one for each of us, customized to fit your particular needs. I am opposed to organized religions of all kind, and especially to dogma, the worst being the fundamentalist variety, regardless of what faith it's attached to. In some ways, I could say that I'm more of a spiritualist than a person that has a religion. But I do call it that. I've received flack in the past for not being Christian in America. I've been told I'll go to hell. I believe in an afterlife. I often refer to it as a Summerlands, which is kind of funny because I don't much like summer. But my spirituality is in development. It never sits still. It's always changing. It has a very distinct form now, but I know it will evolve, just as I will, until the day I die, and I go off to the Summerlands.